Well, good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well, and this finds you well with your families at home. I hope you can all hear me correctly. If not, please pop in a question into the live session, and I'll certainly see if we can sort things out as we go through the presentation. So welcome to today's webinar with First Technology and First Digital. We'll be running these webinars on a weekly basis, with the next one happening next Wednesday. And that'll be all about DevOps practices and collaboration tools within your business and how you can take advantage of that. So please join us next week. The invite will be going out today, so you should have that in your inbox pretty soon. But anyway, back to today's topic. Before I move forward, what I'd like to do is just introduce ourselves. I'm Scott Beattie. I'm the business manager for First Digital in the Western Cape. And today I've got Yuvalin Naidu, who's our practice lead and who will be demonstrating the solution that we're talking about today. We'll also be sharing a survey at the end of the webinar. It'll either get sent out straight afterwards or during the course of today. Please do us a favor, fill in the survey, send it back to us, give us some input around what other topics you'd like to see moving forward. We'll certainly be continuing this on a regular basis and keep everybody informed and keep our customers up to date with some of the really cool and interesting solutions that they can take advantage of. During the course of the webinar, as I mentioned, we will have a Q&A, so we'll deal with that at the end of the presentation, and I'll pop out some of those questions through to Yuvi, and if we can answer them, we'll certainly do that. But first of all, let me just give you an intro into who First Digital is. A lot of companies, a lot of people we speak to always say, well, we understand who First Technology is, but who is First Digital? And so as an introduction for the people on the call, especially with the Cape Town folk, we are part of the First Technology group of companies. And we essentially, what do? We build software solutions. We code. We code on different platforms, and very excitingly, we also do that in the cloud. So if you're looking at modernizing your environments and you're looking at modernizing your systems and processes inside your organization, today is the day to do it. As we know, we live in interesting times, and there's no time like now to digitize your organization. We're 130 plus developers and consultants in the main locations in South Africa. What's interesting about that for you is that even though we are localized within the different regions, we also share our consultants across projects and across regions as well. So you can take advantage of different consultants and different experiences within First Digital to help you with your digital transformation opportunities. We're also a Microsoft certified partner, and in many different competencies, and that definitely provides a lot of value in terms of where you're looking at digitizing within your business. Today is definitely an interesting time for everybody. Managing new work situations, especially with regards to our social distancing challenges that we have today, is definitely giving us some interesting ways of working. And with that brings a number of challenges. We're seeing more people, obviously everybody working from home. It's probably going to continue for a lot longer, especially with regards to companies adopting this new way of work. And it seems to be working for a number of companies, and definitely seems to be the way forward. We also have a situation where things are being disrupted. Our routines are being disrupted. We need to really rethink how we actually perform from a home context point of view. How do we manage the different dynamics from a family point of view? How do we interact with our colleagues remotely? How do we interact with our customers remotely? And more importantly, how do we collaborate and become even more digital than ever before? And that's definitely an interesting approach for a number of companies and how to deal with that. It's also about connecting with your team. How do we improve the way we still keep those relevant interactions going with regards to the people that we work with, the skill sets that we need to interact with, and more importantly, how do we bring all that to our customers in a remote way of work? And how do we do that is really all about making sure that you can continue with the interaction that you need. And tools are even more relevant today in terms of how they are developing and how they're growing to help our customers do that today and help us actually do that with our colleagues and employees. The good news is that Microsoft Teams is all encompassing in terms of a really fantastic productivity tool that allows you to manage all your work in one place, where you can maintain productivity, stay connected with your team, communicate, share, and collaborate with regards to everything that you need to do from a business point of view. If we have a look at just high level in terms of what we can do within Microsoft Teams, and this is a topic that is definitely something we'll extend on and continually educate the market. There's a number of things that we can do today with regards to using Teams. Communication is absolutely critical, whether we're doing that through a chat, we're doing that through meetings, calls, webinars like we're doing today. That's all absolutely critical. Staying connected, keeping people informed, and continuing the conversation on a regular basis is absolutely critical. Being able to collaborate as well with our 365 Office 365 environments, being able to collaborate around specific information that needs to move around the organization is absolutely critical. And the good news about Microsoft Teams is it really is well positioned to assist you to have a seamless experience with regards to how you share the information, how you co-collaborate on documents, how you co-collaborate on creating new content inside your organization, and how you access the important applications that are in your business with regards to integrating into your data sources, integrating into workflows and processes that you need to automate inside your business. What's more important, what's also very relevant and important is also being able to customize and extend your Microsoft Teams environment. So how do you extend that into other third-party productivity tools or other systems with regards to what you might have in place today? The ability to actually bring that into a central place of work is absolutely critical. And we'll give you a view of that today, and just to show you how we can actually tap into the extensive Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 applications that are available to you today. So being able to tap into those applications is absolutely critical, but more importantly, working with confidence to know that you're actually working within an environment that is secure, is compliant, and is extremely manageable is absolutely important for many organizations today, especially with regards to working remotely. However, with Microsoft Teams, there's a number of challenges which has been quite relevant in the market today. And that really comes down to how do you manage this environment? How do you manage this extensive information platform, collaboration platform, where information assets are being shared around your organization, where they potentially aren't being managed well, is definitely top of mind for a number of customers and top of mind for customers that we've spoken to with regards to using Teams moving forward. Some of the questions that you may be thinking about, and certainly questions that we've come across in our engagements with customers, is if you give your people Microsoft Teams, do you allow them to go ahead and just create teams as and when they need? Do you have a process in place that allows them to do that? What type of security is in place to allow people to go and create certain teams within your organization? What access to content do they have with regards to those teams, and what access do they have generally across the organization to leverage specific applications? More importantly, what applications and services are available, and which ones are you going to allow users to add to their Microsoft Teams environment. We'll give you a view of that today in terms of how you can automate that. Also, importantly, is when it comes to looking for teams inside your environment, the challenge of finding relevant teams inside a large organization that's applicable to you is not always easy to do. And so enforcing properties and naming conventions with regards to what a team is about, what a team can actually do and function, and what it's supposed to achieve is going to be critical to manage that inside an organization. And also when it comes to content, in which teams will, what content in which teams will be saved, archived, deleted, for how long, how do you manage that extensive information sharing inside a Microsoft Teams environment? And also, how do you leverage the extensive the Office 365 environment with regards to some of the other capabilities built into the Power Platform, for example? You can really extend Teams beyond using Microsoft Flow, Microsoft Forms, Power Apps, and other interesting and very exciting new applications that Microsoft makes available to you through the environment. So with that, what I'll do is let me hand over to Yuvi. He's going to take you through the Teams order provisioning solution to give you a view of how you could look at managing and governing your environment within your Teams environment. So Yuvi, over to you if you want to share your desktop and take everybody through the order provisioning solution.
Sure, thanks, Scott. Good morning, everyone. I'm just sharing my screen quickly, so it should come through shortly, if not already. Okay, so just to touch a bit on what Scott actually mentioned earlier around what Teams is and how it can help, I just thought I'd just touch on it again in a nutshell. Teams is regarded as a productivity hub in Office 365 by Microsoft. So everything to do with productivity, Microsoft Teams is the answer by Microsoft. It's regarded as a single point of access to conversations, files, notes, and tasks. And the idea behind Teams is to combine Office 365 tools into one platform. And that's things like Skype for chat and conferencing, SharePoint and OneDrive when it comes to file sharing, OneNote for note-taking, Microsoft Stream when it comes to video sharing, Microsoft Planner, which I will show you shortly, a small demo of that. That's for everyday project management. And then there are other third-party apps that are available on this platform, like Scott mentioned. The overall idea by Microsoft is that they consider it to be the inner loop of collaboration. So they've joined all of these individual tools together to provide one single platform, and they will be building on it going forward. So the idea behind Microsoft is that they have a roadmap for Teams, and they're trying to make sure it covers all of these tools in one single collaborative platform. So some of the challenges that we've experienced when it comes to governance. So we've done quite a few for customers, and we've obviously made note with our experience of the challenges they experience, some of the questions they ask, and I've highlighted the four main ones. And what we did as a team at First Digital, we created an auto provisioning application that kind of talks to these four pain points, if you would call it that. So the first thing that came up on the list was group sprawl. So what this means is that users were creating multiple teams. And one of the issues with that is that if you have a project and a team member creates a project team or team site within Teams for that project, and someone else does the same, then you've got a duplication of sites, whereas documents can be loaded in different locations, and then it makes it difficult for users to find content. So that's one of the examples when it comes to group sprawl. At the same time, like you see on my screen, the teams on the left, I've only got two, which is project template, project administration. When you have group sprawl, you'll end up with a ton of sites on the left, some of which are active, some of which haven't been touched for years, and it just creates a bit of a messy look and feel on the left-hand side, making it difficult to find what you need when you need it. The second point when it comes to government strategy challenges is consistent naming conventions. Scott touched on that. The idea behind that is if a standard user creates a team site off the bat with no governance around it, they could spell a customer's name incorrectly, which then obviously makes it difficult for us to find data or the site itself as other users. Also, if a single member creates a team site for First Digital and spells digital incorrectly, someone else will do a search, not find anything, and then obviously think it's not created yet, and then they would go and create a second one, and that will create a group sprawl. So those two talk carefully together. So we needed to put some sort of a validation in place to ensure that the naming conventions are met and approved before it's actually created. Just a second eye to make sure that everything is how it should be according to the business. The third point is end of cycle. So we talk about users can't archive. So at the moment, when it comes to Microsoft Teams, an archiving process is a little bit of admin involved, whereas users don't have the power to do that. Admin would have to do that on the Teams admin center. They would choose to archive it. They would have the ability to make it read-only as well, which is a separate checkbox, which they might or might not tick. That's left for human error. And then they would have to remove the members they don't need in that team anyway. So that's how the archiving process works when it comes to Microsoft Teams. So we thought we would empower the users a bit more and give them the ability to archive it without compromising the data that's included in that site. The fourth and last one is with reporting. So governance challenge on that is who has access, who approved that site to be created, when was it created, what is the description of the site, what was it used for, if it's called First Digital, for example, what is the project for. So if they just name the site First Digital, the description will then give them details as to which project within First Digital the site was created for. So it's just a way for us to track and we can see what has been archived, what has been created, when it was requested, who the approver was, if there's one or more approvers, as well as when it was approved. So that just gives us a bit more visibility into how users are creating it. So there's twofold here. When it came to our approach, one was we want to empower users to do things in Teams themselves with as little business intervention as possible. That will just make the adoption a bit easier, because if there's too many restrictions in place, then users can tend to back off Teams. So we want to give them that ability whilst also giving the business the visibility to ensure that it's done correctly and timeously as well. So over to the app. So on the screen now, you're looking at the Microsoft Teams project site provisioning app. It's an app that's built into Teams. On the left, you'll see there's a project administration site and there's a project template. The project template won't be visible to users. I just made it visible here so I can explain how this is created. So the only thing users will see is project administration, and that will be pinned to the top. And this gives them the ability to access the admin console of the provisioning app. We try to make it as user intuitive as possible and as simple to use as possible. So we just provided them with two options. One is to request a new project. This word project is subjective. So if it's for a business that doesn't necessarily deal with projects, it can be anything we need it to be. It could be request new team or request new site, etc. And likewise with archive project. So to request a new project, all users have the ability to request a new project. To archive a project, only the owner of that project will be able to archive it. So if, for example, I request a new project, that would make me the owner of the project. When the cycle has come to an end for that project and I want to archive it, only I will be able to archive it. It will only be visible to me. So that's a little bit of control by limiting who can archive projects, but also giving the users the empowerment to archive it themselves and cut down the time frame that they would have to wait for an admin to go do that manually in the backend and take away the human error involved. So I'm just going to run through the process. So if we go to request new project, what you're going to see is a little simple form. We try to keep it as simple as possible for the users. The idea is that the user will put in a site name, which is effectively the project name. So for example, we will call this webinar project site. They would put in a description. So this is a demo of the project. Cool. And here they will select the members. So this will pull back everyone in the business. They can search for it, and you can select one or multiple. So I'm just going to select two. click submit. And that's it. That's all the user would have to do from their side. It'll say your team site will be provisioned shortly. We go back to home and we'll just leave the screen just like this. In the background, what the actual app is doing and the workflow behind that, it's actually receiving that request. It's writing it to a list or a database in the back end to acknowledge that someone has requested it, who the requester was. It's then going and looking up the approver or approvers, approver in this case, and sending them an email. So the approval can happen in a few different variations. We can send it to a single person for approval. We can send it to multiple people for approval, or a security group, an AD, so that anyone in that group has the ability to approve. And we can choose to do that sequentially or at the same time. So in other words, if there's 5 approvers, we can make it so that either one of the 5 have to approve or all 5 have to do that, either in parallel or sequentially. So in Outlook, as you can see, I'm in Outlook. I have the ability to approve or reject, and you can see I'm doing it directly in the email. I'm going to say this is approved, and I'm going to submit that. So now what the workflow in the background is doing is actually it's received that approval. It's logging that approver's name. It's logging the approval date and time and the status of the approval, which is approved in this case. So if we switch back, what the workflow is now doing, it's provisioning that team site according to the name that I gave it. It's then rolling out a couple of channels. I think there's 4 in this demo, but it can be however many as required by the template itself. It's then going on to add Microsoft Planner, which we'll notice now. As you can see on the left-hand side, it was pushed out dynamically. So I haven't refreshed the page. I haven't done anything. Because I'm a member, it's added me by default. So it's rolled out the channels that are here. If we go into the General tab, you'll see that there's an additional tab called My Planner, which I'll get to shortly. And you can see that there's 4 channels that have been rolled out by default. So in the background, this workflow has now provisioned the site. It's created the tabs necessary for it, including Planner. So if we go and click on Set Up Tab for Planner, so as I mentioned earlier, Microsoft Planner is everyday project management. And this project planner is included in this site and is only relevant to the site. So it's fully integrated within this team site itself. We can create a new plan and call this webinar plan. Click Save. And as you can see, we now have Planner within this webinar project site. So here we can assign tasks. So for example, task 1, we can set a due date of the 20th, for example. And here where we assign, you'll notice it'll only give me the ability to assign it to users who are part of this site. So I won't be able to add anyone outside. If I need to add someone from outside, I first need to add them as a member into this project site, and then it will be visible here within Planner. So if I were to assign a task to Darius and I say add task, that task is now available. If I add a second task, and let's call this task 2, and set a due date of the 29th and assign it to myself. So now we have 2 tasks. If we go on the top right, we can change the view and view the progress. And here's where you can click on the task and it gives you a bunch of options on how to manage that task itself. So it's your standard project management type interface, giving you the ability to set statuses, priority, type notes where needed, add attachments, etc. Users also have the ability to move their tasks by dragging and dropping as they go by. At the top, we have the board, is what we are looking at now, and then we have charts. And this gives you a nice visual of the tasks that are in progress versus the ones that have not started and the ones that are late and completed. And on the right, we can also see it in a nice format, makes it easier for us to manage this project. And then lastly is the schedule. The schedule is simple calendar showing all the tasks that are available. Again, we can click on the task and we can view the different options to add to that task. So if we want to change it to in progress, to completed, for example, we can do that there. We can create a checklist if we'd like, and we can tick them off one by one. So it's a nice way to manage a project, and it's all within the webinar project site.
Yuvi?
Yes.
So it's interesting to see how we can add Planner, which is, I'm guessing we could potentially leverage any other app within the environment to automate. So could we potentially, bring in other applications into the automation process? So, Planner might be one of them, but they might want to add some additional application at the top of the tab area.
Yes, correct. So you can have more applications. We can also replace the planner with other ones. So by doing that, all we need to do is update the project template, the template that it's using to actually provision the site. And we can add a bunch of Microsoft applications like a document library from SharePoint, a Power App, even a PowerPoint presentation directly, stream video, etc. And then we have additional third-party applications, some of which require paid licenses, but they are available to add. And we can do that as part of the provisioning process as well.
Fantastic.
Cool. So the next thing I'd like to move on to is the Files tab. So as part of a Teams site that's provisioned, it provisions a document library in Office 365 where you would typically host your files for that specific project. Something we've done as part of the provisioning is that we rolled out a predefined folder structure. So by this way is that we try to keep everything consistent. So a business will have a predefined folder structure that they would give us. We would then put that as part of the original template that was rolled out. And then we can ensure that every project that's rolled out has the exact same folder structure. And this applies to the root level folders as well as subfolders. And we can even include files. So if there's templates, for example, a requirements document that's inside there, we can include that requirements document by default when we roll out this site. Another key aspect of this is the metadata options. So as you can see on the right, we have country, city, and document type. So if I were to go into the requirements section and upload a file and just choose my notes, we can see that metadata is getting attached to this document by default. These metadata columns can be anything the business suggests it to be, as well as the metadata that's included. It's a predefined list that can be edited at any time. So it's pulling that list and we can update it as needed. And then from there, users have the ability to then collaborate collectively on a single document at the same time, which is quite nice. Cool. So just to recap, there's quite a bit of information. We were able to go as a user onto the administration tab, request a new project site or a site, team site. That went for approval to an approver who approved it. Once it was approved, it takes roughly 20 to 30 seconds to provision that site end to end, roll out the channels that are predefined, roll out the folder structure that's predefined with the subfolders and any documents that are included in there, as well as a planner that's included with that site. Again, planner can be replaced, or in addition, we could add a bunch of various Microsoft apps inclusive of that site, as well as third-party apps that's available for us to choose from. So it's entirely up to the business. Another key thing to mention here is when we look at the project administration site and go into the admin console, this request a site, request a new project. This is a single one at the moment. So it's only one variation of this. If a business comes to us and says, or a client comes to us and says they actually want a specific template rolled out for project sites and a specific template rolled out for client sites, for example, we can make that a drop-down that's included here. So the user will then specify if it's a project, maybe it's an internal project and an external project, and then it will roll out a different site based on the option that's selected by the user. So it's not restricted to just one site that's rolled out or one template that's rolled out or one set of folder structure that's rolled out. It can be multiple. So it's fully flexible. It can create multiple types of sites. It's completely up to the business on how we determine that. Cool. So now if we go into our webinar project site, we've now used the site, we've used the channels, etc. And we've now come to the end of the cycle, which is one of the challenges that came across. We talk about how to archive that site. To do that, the user, in this case, the owner of the site, would go into the admin console. They would select Archive Project. And then here, they will be able to select the project site that they would like to archive. At the moment, I only have one. So if another user, whether they're a member or not of this project site, if they were to click on the archive site, they will not see this because I am the owner. I'm the one who requested the site to be created. So if I select that and say submit, it tells me your team site will be archived shortly. Should you require access to archive projects, please log a ticket with IT support. This text is completely flexible. We can put whatever message the business requires for that. In the background, what's happening is that the application itself is running in the background. It's now seen that the site needs to be archived. All it is doing is it's actually revoking access to that site. So when we talk about archive, all we're doing is removing access from the site and dynamically retrieving it from people's Teams client. So on the left, we can see the Teams client is here. And what it's going to do just now is it's actually going to revoke the access and dynamically remove it from my Teams client. So the user on their side, whether it's the owner or the members, they wouldn't necessarily have to do anything. It's actually just going to remove it by default. In the background, it's not deleting any data, it's not compromising any data, it's just removing the access, making it read-only. If we need access to that project site again, or the archive site, all we need to do is contact the admin of the tenant or the Teams admin, and they would just go and add the members back into that project site. So no data is deleted, it's still backed up in Office 365. There's absolutely no compromise of the documents that are in there. Cool. Just going to wait for that to archive quickly. It shouldn't take too long. Should disappear shortly. There we go. So as you can see, it's been removed dynamically. I had to do a refresh there, but it was actually just pause for one or two more seconds. If I had waited, it was going to get removed. So as you can see, the site is gone. It looks to the user that the site is being deleted or inaccessible. It is still accessible via the admin, like I mentioned. It also gives us the ability to clean out people's Teams client and ensure that they don't put in data into an old site and rather use just the new and active sites. So that's the archiving site. If we switch over to the last challenge, which was reporting. So in SharePoint, we would create a Teams auto provisioning site. And what this is used for is it actually log every step of the process. So on the left-hand side, we can see team requests as well as archive sites. So if we were to go into the team requests list, we can see the team that was requested. We can see the title of the team. We can see the description, what that team was created for, who the owner is, who the members of the team are, the status, was it approved, rejected. The created by is actually just the flow account. In this case, it was me, so it's actually the same here. And then we can see when it was created. So we can see that it was created 13 minutes ago. So here's where we can track all the requests for teams and all the sites that were created, as well as what was approved versus what was rejected and the reasons for that. If we change over to archive sites, we can now see what sites have been archived and the site address to that archive site if it's needed. So here we can see the name of the site is webinar project site. This is the site address and when it was archived. It says created, but that is effectively the date of when this was archived. It was archived 3 minutes ago. I'm an admin of the site, so if I were to just click on this link and open it in a new tab, you can see I can access the site. The users won't be able to access the site. Myself as an admin, I'll be able to do that. If I switch over to documents, I can see my general folder, which is the folder from Teams. And here we can confirm that the folders are still in place. The documents that are included should still be in place as well. There we go, my one document that I've uploaded. So the data itself is still available, hasn't been deleted or tampered with. If needed, we can always revert back the members that were in the group and make it active again. It will push automatically to the Teams client. We also have Notebook, which is there, as well as Conversations, which will push through as well. Cool, and that's the Teams provisioning app. Like I mentioned before, it's completely flexible. For additional requirements, we can include that within the app, whether there's additional information that the business needs before provisioning an app, if there's additional site types that they want rolled out, templates, we can include that as part of the options. All we'll do is add a condition to that. Based on the user's input, we can spin up specific team sites for them. In terms of the template and how we update that going forward, like I touched on earlier, we have a project template, which only the admin can see, and the admin will just come in here. They would then update this site template. So as you can see, planners included there, and our channels are here. They would update that and update the files and folder structure on that one. And going forward, the workflow will just pick up that new edited template and spin up that as we go forward. So in this scenario, the admin will just see project template, but we can call it whatever we want. For example, if there's a specific template for internal projects, we can call this internal project template and have another one, which is external project template. And as part of the application process, we can then determine based on the user's input which one it is, and then retrieve the correct template and spin that up for the users. Everything is dynamic. The user's input is minimal, yet we are empowering them to create sites themselves, as well as the ability to archive sites themselves with minimal admin from the actual Teams admin themselves. So we tried to speak to all of the challenges that we could. We are still building more features and enhancements. So going forward, we will push more enhancements to the Teams provisioning app. But as it stands, it does everything it needs to in terms of our experience with governance challenges with customers. Thanks, Scott. Over to you.
That's great, GV. Thanks very much. I mean, it's fantastic to see how organizations can spin projects up and then close them down when they're finished. I think, if I remember correctly, I think that's one of the reasons why we created this solution from a client request where they had specific contracting requirements and needed to bring a team together. And then when that contract was finished, then shut it down. If I recall, that's essentially where this requirement came from.
Yes, that's correct. And as part of that, they also had a very specific folder structure when it comes to how it's set up. It's a construction company, so they've got a very specific order of how they do things and how documents are moved between folders. So we needed to provision it, but also keep to a specific folder structure for them. The issue they were having is that users would create different folders, put the same templated documents in the incorrect folders, and when their client list grew to 5,000, they couldn't find a specific document when they needed. So that was part of the thinking behind the metadata as well as the folder structure rollout.
No, that's fantastic. I like the opportunity that organizations have to essentially, provide teams and employees with the ability to essentially give them an opportunity to spin something up that's got everything they need and that's contained in one team site that allows them to do the work that they need to do. That's really exciting, and the opportunity to extend that even further as organizations find better ways of working. That really looks exciting with a flexible platform like Microsoft Teams and the Office 365 environment.
Correct, and it is a huge requirement at the moment, and we have Microsoft that are quite surprised of how we did that, and they're quite excited by the provisioning application as well, which is quite nice.
That's fantastic. So with that, thanks very much, Evie. Before I finish off, what I'd like to do is just give the audience an opportunity to pose some questions onto the live event Q&A. I've had some questions already with regards to leveraging Planner, and Crystal, I hope my answer was good enough for you, but essentially that was really how we could integrate the environment and Planner with Outlook. It's definitely doable and integrated via different mechanisms, but we can certainly help you with that. There's been a couple of questions around the recording. Yes, we are recording this session. It will be shared after the event, and will also be posted through to our Tech Summit website, which I'll share with you just now. But with that, are there any other questions that you would like to ask to Yuvi with regards to the solution that's been built?
So I just read one of the questions from Charles. Can one assign members tasks to people outside of the organization? You did answer that, and that is correct. Just wanted to add to that. On the provisioning app itself, when you spin up a team site, you can choose to spin up a public or a private team site. Public being users have access to it, private being specific to those members. That is something that's coming out shortly within the Teams provisioning app. As the new rollout of the version 2, there'll be a toggle when a user requests a team site. It would be either private or public. So if they choose private, it will stay private. If they choose public, then users can see it and actually request to join. That's just something I'd like to add there. And in terms of external users, you can have external guest users collaborate with your internal users within a Teams project site.
That's awesome, Yuvi. Fantastic. Great. Well, it doesn't look like we have any further questions. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we will be sharing a survey after this, which will also allow you to pose your questions in that survey, in which case gives us the opportunity to get back to you. And if you'd like to set up another meeting after this with us, you are more than welcome to reach out directly or through your First Technology account managers. And we'll certainly set up another session where we could look at extending this type of solution into your environment, or potentially looking at other types of solutions. We've built a number of them already, which we can certainly share with you, and which are available through our Tech Summit page. I've got one last question here, which is, did you follow a naming convention for 365 group associated with a new team, Yuvi?
Yes, so how that works is when you give in the team site name itself, for example, on my side was webinar, I think something like that. In the background, how it creates the Office 365 group is that it accepts that name, it removes any invalid characters and joins that with a dash and creates the Office 365 group according to Microsoft standards. So it'll stick to that site name, which is how Teams works by default. So we can't manipulate that too much as long as the team site is correct. As part of the naming convention, we include the approval step to ensure that it sticks to a certain naming convention. But what we can also do is include validations on that naming field. So if there's specific validations in terms of don't use a dash, we can ensure that there's a validation before the user can even request it.
Great, Yuvi. I think another question is, how is this available? Maybe you'd like to just help everybody understand, what's involved with getting this implemented at customer sites, and maybe just help them understand, what's involved with regards to getting the installation going and configuring their environment to do this.
Sure. So to roll it out, what we do typically is that a client would first come to us and say, okay, they would like to take on this auto provisioning application. So as part of the solution, we've packaged this into one single deployment. So we deploy the app itself within Teams with no effect to the users. And then we deploy the workflows behind it, as well as we provision the site, which is here, the Teams Auto Provision site. When we deploy the site, it will deploy the lists and columns automatically as part of the provisioning process to limit how long it takes for us to actually provision it for a client. Everything is integrated nicely. From the user's perspective, they don't have to do anything. The project administration tab would be rolled out automatically. The only time-consuming process within the deployment is the business requirements. So we would typically talk to the client and find out exactly how they would like to use it, how they see it. If they aren't sure, we would then assist them in tailor-making the solution for them. We try to understand their folder structure they'd like to keep in place. Any validations, like someone asked a question, we would put that all in place before we actually deploy. So we do a full scoping process with them, get all the requirements. We would then create a test version of it with a single user or multiple users at the client. Once they are happy of how it provisions and they got the folder structure correct, as well as the metadata, we would then roll that out to all users. And then we would end off with training. So there's two parts of training. We either train the trainer. So if there's a power user at the client, we would train that power user, and they would then go on to train their staff. Otherwise, we would provide direct training with the staff, and then we would have go live support that follows thereafter. So any issues that users experience, they would have a specific email address that they would utilize, and then we would support them from our side. There will also be documentation provided as well.
Excellent. There was one last question around, do external users require a 365 license? I'm not too sure if we can specifically answer that. There might be some context which we need to understand. But what I'll do is I'll take that question, Charles, and I'll pop that out after this to add a little bit more detail around what you need to consider when sharing external or content and team sites with external users.
Also, in terms of how this is made available, I see two people have asked that question. In terms of its availability, they would just need to contact First Digital. So ideally, we would be Scott, and we would then get a team on board to take it from there.
Great, I think that's it. So what I want to do is I just want to share one last slide with everybody. So just quickly before everybody goes, and thanks very much for joining us today, what I wanted to share with you is our First Digital Tech Summit website, which you can access through the URL that I'm showing you on the screen today. What's fantastic and exciting about this is it's a central area portal that you can go to at any time. All you need to do is just register on the site, and there's different content that's available to you, where we show you how to go and build certain things within your environment. There are some webinars, including this webinar, which we'll post at some point to the website, where you can actually go and replay certain webinars with regards to specific solutions that we've built. You can see there's one particular one there where we've actually gone and built a COVID-19 checklist, which is very relevant today using Microsoft Forms. But a number of different opportunities that you can leverage today. So well, I encourage you to go to the website, go and register, and we'll send you the survey as well after this session. Please let us know what else you would like to see moving forward. I'd like to encourage you to once again, sign up for the DevOps session next Wednesday. Where we'll have one of our key experts talk about DevOps and how that's been implemented in an organization today, which is very relevant with regards to remote development teams and making sure that you're fully agile with regards to building applications and modernizing your environments moving forward. So with that, I'd like to end off by saying thank you so much for your time today. Yubi and I really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to continually engaging with you with new topics, new webinars moving forward. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Stay safe. Keep well. All the best.